when you can learn to like feel the uncomfortable and do it anyway, that's when real growth happens.
So raise your hand if you've ever experienced imposter syndrome in your business journey inside of network marketing. Imposter syndrome is that nagging feeling that, you know, you're not good enough, you know, you can never be that person. And it's actually something that keeps a lot of network marketers stuck. It's a roadblock inside their business. So click on the subscribe button. We want you to drop below in the comments, you know, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome inside of your business? And what did that look like? Because we're going to give you some action steps over this next little while of how you can get out of that imposter syndrome funk. So
really good topic. I can totally relate to it. And I see people stuck in that imposter syndrome because here's what the thought process here. If I feel like an imposter, I'm probably doing something wrong, or I shouldn't be doing it. I shouldn't be feeling like an imposter, right? So that's where the thought comes in. If you think in that way, think about it. The real imposter never feels like an imposter.
True.
So if you feel like an imposter, you're not imposter.
So kind of a squirrel brain. My kids, they play that game Among Us, and there's an imposter that's in there. And to that point, my son Xandrix, when he first started playing it, he was probably about 6 years old, and he was like, "Mom, how do I know if I'm the imposter?" I was like, "You would know if you were the imposter," right? And so to that point, Among Us.
So let's talk about a time, you know, because, you know, we've been in this industry for a while, and, you know, through our own work on ourselves that we continue to do all the time, we've been able to, I would say, in the early times of building our business, we've been able to really kind of rein that in and conquer some of that. But as you climb that ladder, right? You have new successes, you level up more in your business, that imposter syndrome can absolutely come back and creep back in.
Absolutely.
You know,
At every level.
At every level.
Yeah.
Right.
As soon as you hit a new level, then it's, you know, it's getting out of your comfort zone again. And you're like, wait, do I belong here?
Right. So let's talk about, you know, specifically for us, like, when has that time been when you had imposter syndrome?
I mean, it starts, so for me, I was a dentist. I went to university, I got the degree, I had the qualifications to be a dentist. And when I quit dentistry to do network marketing, I felt like I didn't have the right qualifications in order to be doing what I was doing, in order to be sharing what I was sharing. I felt like, and this is how you may be feeling right now, is that you need to know everything. You need to have all the answers. You need to be the expert in your field in order to go and speak to people. And this cannot be further from the truth, because if you think about it logically, who is an expert? Like, everybody is still learning. We're all still learning. You know, even the experts in your field, you know, as a dentist, you're always learning. You're always doing continuing professional development. So everybody is still learning, and you don't need to be the expert. And what I discovered was, you know, even as I was starting, was I didn't have to know all the answers. I didn't have to know everything. I just needed to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of the person that I was trying to help. And that made me so much more relatable to them than somebody who was, you know, top of the company, somebody who was way ahead of me, because I couldn't relate to them.
Yep.
So when I was getting coaching and getting help, was, you know, somebody who was I could relate to, who was just a couple of steps ahead of me, was so much more relatable.
Yeah.
Because they were
It's almost
real to me.
felt like you could be them.
I could be them.
because
Whereas
it
the
was
person-
only a few
Whereas
levels
the person
ahead,
who was the
right?
multimillionaire, the person who had achieved everything that I ever dreamt of, like, I couldn't see the path.
Right. It's too overwhelming
It was too
to see
big.
there.
It was too big.
Yeah.
So I was told, like, in the very beginning of my network marketing career, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? So with that has come like almost a revolving door of imposter syndrome, because I want to be in the room with people that are smarter than me, but then I get into the room and I'm like, what am I doing here, right? But it's like when you can learn to like feel the uncomfortable and do it anyway.
Yeah.
That's when real growth happens. Like I found that my imposter syndrome usually happens when I'm starting something new because I just don't have the skill set yet. So I feel like the imposter because I'm surrounded by people that have been doing it longer than I have. And then, it's like, but over however long it takes me to develop that skill set, it's like, I no longer feel like the imposter. I've mastered it. But then I'm like, oh, now I'm going to go into this room with these people. And then I'm like, shit, I'm the imposter again, right? Yeah. And so it's like this constant revolving door. But when you can, like, it's just, for me, it's come down to, let's put a different feeling and energy behind what imposter syndrome
Like
really
reframing
is.
it.
Let's
Yeah,
reframe
it.
it. And I've reframed it in my mind where I know that when I'm feeling that feeling, I'm about to step into a new level of greatness.
Yeah.
And everybody, like if you start to feel that discomfort and being like, oh, I'm an imposter, it probably means that you're doing something right.
Right. And this can happen
Absolutely.
even, with your network marketing journey inside of you first get started, right? Like I was a cosmetologist. Like here I am now, you want me to go live and tell people how to build a business that I've actually never even done, right? Like I'm in the process of doing it, but I haven't actually, done it. So I don't know, there's a lot to it and a lot behind it, but I think it's when you get out of your comfort zone, because, doing live video, people also freak out. They're like, it's video and who am I to be doing video?
And they just won't do it.
They just won't do it, right? So that it can that imposter syndrome can, freeze, fight, or flight, right? That's what it will do. And so, you have to know as an entrepreneur, as a network marketer, as somebody that's going to grow and continue to grow, that it's part of what you're going to go through.
Yeah.
So then where do you think like that comes from? Where do you think, their imposter syndrome stems from when it comes up for them?
I got that one. So first of all, imposter syndrome, what we were trying to say up to this point is something very natural and usual. It's not something you should be like, oh, I feel like an imposter, I need to quit. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of entrepreneurs do, right? Because it's very uncomfortable and we tend to associate imposter syndrome with something negative. So what we try to tell you that it's quite natural process and it's going to happen time after time when you start something new. So I want to kind of like break down a little bit the science of it, like you said, where it comes from. So anytime you start in a new journey, new adventure, new experience, for example, first time you went to a new school, do you feel like you don't fit in there, don't belong there, like everyone's looking at me, right? So that's kind of like exposed feeling, uncomfortable. Imagine even very simple and funny one. You go on vacation to a brand new resort you've never been to, right? You don't know where's the restaurant, where's the beach. You're kind of like, oh, everyone's looking at me. I'm even white. I don't have any tan yet. Like, it's almost like you feel like you're exposed and you're trying to blend in. Like, oh my gosh. By the 7 days, of your being in the resort goes by, you're like, oh, those are the newbies. I can tell. Right? You kind of like, you become familiar with everything, more comfortable, more confident. So the same happens in our entrepreneurial journey. So the more you're going to start, building your skill sets, just going and pushing that live button, you will notice that little by little, you actually kind of like okay with being not okay, being uncomfortable. So what I'm trying to say that when imposter syndrome will hit you, and it will, don't try to go back and thinking it's a bad thing and I should probably not do it because I'm not an expert. We start comparing ourselves to the gurus and the experts, and we think, well, if we're not there, we shouldn't be. Who can I inspire, right? So, and think about it, that just showing up every single day, even though you're scared, even though it's uncomfortable, it's gonna kind of quiet down that imposter syndrome. And Fran has a good analogy of it as a seatbelt. I want you to share it. Yes. Like it's our safety mechanism.
It is. So, I can remember, I'm that old, that when I grew up, we didn't have safety. We didn't have
back in the day when we walked to school uphill,
when
we used to
20 feet of snow.
when we used to
Wait,
sit
there's
far
snow
the
in
back
South
seat.
Africa?
Sorry. We did get snow. Once or twice. Yeah, we did get snow. But we didn't have seatbelts. And when seatbelts first came in, it was like, oh, I'm not putting this thing on. It's uncomfortable. All it is, you know, you get, it's something that you automatically do. You just plug your seatbelt in, okay? And it keeps you safe in the car. And if you think of that imposter syndrome, okay, you think of it, it's your seatbelt, and it's just trying to keep you safe. So thank you for being
Put it on and start driving.
plug it in, and you carry on. You don't think about it. So think about that imposter syndrome as it's just trying to keep me safe. Thank you for being there. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. But I got this.
We're gonna go drive.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, I'm sure you felt that way when you did dentistry. When you shared that story the other day, when you
So
the
I'll
guys
tell a story. So the first time I ever actually treated a real live patient, and he must have seen the fear in my face. I mean, I was probably shaking like this, and he looked at me and he said, "How much practice have you had? Have you done this before?" And I said, "No, I've had a lot of practice. Not on real people, but I try and reassure him.
Undead ones that
I've
don't
had
feel
a lot of practice, and I had to do an extraction, and I gave him the local anesthetic, and I did it.
and you were pooping your
And
pants.
I was sweating buckets. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to poop my pants, but I did it anyway because I leaned into it, because I had to do it. I had to do it. And then the next time was so much easier. So every time, think of it as that seatbelt. Think of it as it's just trying to keep me safe.
Before we move on,
But there's no growth that happens inside of that
I
country.
just want to point out the enunciation of the poop my pants that you just did. The P's were very on point.
So my action gives me every
I
time.
love it.
So let's talk about how it actually affects your business when you're going through that imposter syndrome, or even like, are you even aware? Right? Because some people might not even be aware
That that's what's happening.
or not happening.
That's
But
the
like,
reason
what is it
they're-
actually doing to your business when you're stuck in that imposter syndrome?
If you find yourself not taking action, not doing the steps that you know you need to do in order to grow your business,
Or avoiding.
avoiding, resisting,
Finding the laundry.
doing the laundry, cleaning the house, cleaning out your cupboards, you know, doing whatever it is, or binge watching something on Netflix. When you find yourself doing that, instead of actually, you know, going live, talking to people,
Right.
okay, having those conversations with the people who've actually held their hand up and said, "I want to know more about what it is that you're posting about." When you find yourself avoiding, think of that seatbelt. Thank yourself. Appreciate it. Appreciate it for keeping you safe.
Yeah.
And go and do it anyway. And understand, and being aware of it is you know, I find myself cleaning out cupboards. I do. I was like, oh, time to clean out the bathroom cupboard. Oh, that kitchen cupboard that needs tidying up.
What am I running from?
What am I avoiding?
Yeah.
Okay. What is it that I'm avoiding doing? Okay. Become aware of that, and then think, okay, I'm going to go do it anyway. Go and take the action.
So we were at a mastermind just yesterday. I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, but one of the speakers got up. I mean, multi-millionaire right up here on stage, and he's talking. He completely debunked analysis paralysis. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Where he was all like, "You guys are using analysis paralysis as a freaking excuse for your procrastination or your avoidance." He's all like, scientifically speaking, it doesn't exist.
No.
It's a term and a phrase that we come up with, and we're like, "Oh, I'm stuck in analysis paralysis." No, you have a taking action problem. You're avoiding. You're procrastinating. And so it's like, when you feel it, it's like, how do you move through it? Because we get it all the time where you're like, oh, like fear, you know, feel the fear and do it anyway. Well, what it comes down to is first understanding what that fear is. What is it that's causing that discomfort that you're feeling? It always stems from something in your past. Know that, okay, like when you can identify where your certain fears come from, it makes it really easy to move through that fear because it's not real.
Right.
Yeah.
Fear stands for future events appearing real, but they're not actually
It's
real.
you making them up in
you
your mind.
all in your you make it up in your
And all
mind.
that story that you create.
Yeah.
to go
So
with
so like an example, people that have a fear of success, something probably happened in their past where they did something great. They were successful in something, and those around them judged them for it, or their perception of others was that they were being judged.
Yeah.
But your perception is your reality. And so now they have this fear of being successful. Same of fear of failure, right? You need to identify, where does that fear stem from? And when you just ask yourself a question, it's probably an event that happened, could have been like grade school, pre-grade school, when something happened that instilled that fear, and now you've allowed that fear to control you your entire life.
Yeah.
So it's like it's so badass when we help our students identify what that fear is, and then they're like, oh my gosh, and their mind
carrying around this baggage for 20 years, and they don't even know.
And we see them drop it right then, and we're like, now that this is the fear and this is where it came from, what might you do about it?
Yeah.
And they step into action, and it's like, oh, I'm getting goosebumps even talking about it. It's one of my favorite things that we do. Yeah. But
So, yeah.
I have a great label for this process.
Yeah.
And so I call it build a relationship with your imposter syndrome, or build a relationship with your fear, because we kind of have a perception that imposter syndrome is a bad guy. So I'm going to say it's not a bad guy, and actually learn how to build a relationship with it. Meaning if it comes up, and it will, identify where it comes from, right? Why do I feel that way? And create an action plan despite that feeling.
It's good.
So let's talk about that, actually. Let's talk about what is it that we did? How did personal development and, some of the stuff that we work on, how did that actually help us get through imposter syndrome or overcome that type of stuff? And then, what can we give our people that are watching, some action steps for them to really, conquer their imposter syndrome that they're going through?
My latest imposter syndrome feeling happened 3 days ago. When we
This
walked,
is another imposter, because there's been before imposters.
Now there's a new imposter.
imposter.
we have invested into a mentorship, so somewhere we can go and mastermind with people who have already achieved what we want to achieve, right? And we walked into a room of, 200 at least, 8-figure earners, 9-figure earners,
There was billionaires in
and immediately I felt small. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a nobody here. Although a minute ago, I flew in the first class and I felt so good about it. So the minute I walked into the room and realized who is in there, I was like, I felt small. And it's normal, because I know that it's how you feel when you start anything new. So, and I remember back in the day before personal development, I would let it consume me and be really uncomfortable and feel like I don't belong, I'm not good enough, I don't have anything to offer to these people. And because I've already learned all of these things that it's not true, I just looked around and I said, hell yeah, I belong here. Hell yeah, I can contribute something to these people. And actually I got up and spoke and said, this is my story, this is who I am. And everyone was so grateful and appreciative. So this is kind of like how I deal with it now. I know that it's going to show up, I acknowledge it, and I just keep doing what I'm doing.
I think number one, you have to be, become aware that that's what it is,
awareness.
right? First, and then you've got to figure out, okay, what is actually, what's causing it, I guess. What's, like Carrie was saying,
does this
like,
come
is it a fear? Is it a fear? Is it this? Is it that? Is it something from my past? Is it, whatever? And then from there, you think, like Fran's saying, you think your imposter syndrome because it's trying to keep you safe. It's your, it's your lizard brain, right? Yeah. And then you take action on whatever it is that you need to do to move forward.
So when we first started coaching, and I was in a
One of your imposters.
in a personal development program for me, okay, and I shared that. I said, I have massive imposter syndrome when it comes to coaching. And so my mentor at the time said to me, well, coach us. It was a room of 62 people in this Zoom room. And I said, what must I coach on? He said, I don't care. I want you to talk for 3 minutes. Coach us. And I had to speak for 3 minutes. And I was, honestly, my glasses actually misted up the... I was sweating so much. And I got to the end and they all clapped. And they said, oh my God, that was amazing. And I suddenly thought, I didn't die. I can do this. I was okay. Yeah. And so it comes back to lean into the thing that you are terrified of doing and do it.
Right.
Take that imperfect action. Know that it's not going to be perfect.
Right.
But realize that you're not going to die. And the only way that you're going to get better and that you're going to overcome that imposter syndrome that you're feeling right now is by taking that imperfect action, by becoming better at what it is that you're terrified of doing. Okay? And then, yeah.
I just had like an idea. Ooh, an idea as we're sitting here. So our brains fear what we don't know.
Yeah.
Right? It's I mean, you think back, it's ingrained within us since we were like running from dinosaurs and saber-toothed tigers. If it was unknown, we didn't do it. So just being human, that's what it is. So I'm almost like, what if we start having our students give their imposter syndrome a name? Like, it's Bobby showing up again.
Yeah.
You know? Like, have you guys ever watched Just Go With It with Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston? Yeah. And they give their kids Poops the Devlin name because it was the person that she hated growing up. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it's just like to give them a name, that thing a name. It's like, how powerful is that to be able to address it by name?
It's actually part of you.
Because it's part of you, right? And so it's like, oh, there's Janet.
She's coming here to save
She's coming here to save me again. Thank you, Janet.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Thank you, Janet. Appreciate it. But I don't need you. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right?
I got this. Yeah.
I got this. I can do it.
Yeah.
And I think that like our, in the beginning, right? If you're just getting started in network marketing, or even if you've been in for a little bit, right? Your personal development routine is going to change and morph, and it's going to start as something. And as you grow or your success grows, or like you said, you move up that ladder, right? That's also going to evolve, because for me personally, I was like every day, right? When I started mastering my consistency, where I was like, okay, every day I'm doing this, every day I'm doing that. And I got disciplined, right? Which helped me to be more consistent in my business. And then next thing you know, I just was creating new habits, and I didn't have to work as hard because I'd established those habits. But my personal development was totally different then, when I was like more in the trenches, right? Helping you stay motivated, all those things, to where it is now. But I think that's because we have done so much work on ourselves,
Yes.
right? That it's not like this daily thing.
It's not a struggle anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like also understanding that your personal development is going to morph and change too. But it's so important to incorporate still in your business.
And the fastest way to know whether or not the personal development you're going through is working is to go and share it and try to help somebody else with it. So that was another imposter syndrome moment for me, was, I had gone through this facilitator training, and then I had to turn around and I had to go and teach other people how to do what I had learned. And that was like deer in the headlights, like, oh my, I'm going to screw this person up. Like, that's what I was thinking, right? Like, I'm going to ruin them. But just like, what is it? The learn, teach, do.
C1.
Yeah, monkey see, monkey do one,
Teach
or whatever,
one, yeah.
whatever that process is. That's when your true transformation happens.
Yeah, it's learn it, do it,
teach it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's when true transformation happens, is when you don't just keep it up here.
Yeah.
You actually start applying it.
Internalize it and move
Make
it
it
to someone
move
else.
it external,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Move it
Then
external to bless
becomes
other people.
more and more unconsciously competent.
Actually, someone said at our event, all great entrepreneurs are givers. So don't be afraid to give to someone what you just learned a couple of days ago. Actually, that's how I built first couple years of my business.
Yeah.
I would learn something. I was like, oh, that was so good. And I'll go teach it to my audience. And they were like, oh my God, how do you know all this stuff? I'm like, I just went and learned it right there.
About 30 minutes ago.
I did that.
I've done that. Yeah.
So if you're ready to end your imposter syndrome and you want to grow a thriving business where you can take your business from 6 to 7 figures on social media, join our free community of over 10,000 network marketers. Grab the link below the description and jump in. And we'll see you there. Don't do that. You're striking my brain.
Just do it in one phrase at a
Come
time.
on, brain. Think of things. Come on, brain.
Okay, stop talking.
Guys, okay, sorry.
Keep it toned down.
Keep it toned down.